Peace in the body. What is it and how do we experience it? This is the question Wren and Fallon explore in Season 3 of Mujéres Co-Labor for Peace.
When it comes to healing and you're stuck in healing, where can we invite in that energetic peace?
Bringing you expert advice in healing from a host of practices and practitioners, Wren and Fallon seek to increase complete wellness and lasting peace, one insight at a time.
Hey, hello, and welcome to the show. This is Season 3 of Mujéres Co-Labor for Peace, Peace in the Body, Episode 5. I am your co-host, Wren Ribeiro.
And I'm your co-host, Fallon Stone.
We wish you complete wellness
and lasting peace. And today we're joined by our special guest, Lauren Rosa. She is a certified PA. She specializes in integrative medicine and women's health, and we're so excited to have her on the show to hear all of her wisdom and have a really heart-centered, dropped-in conversation.
Absolutely. And we've got lots of questions for you, but wonder if you would like to say a little bit about your practice, who you are, before we jump in.
Sure. I feel really grateful to have this conversation with both of you, so thank you for having me. It feels especially special to also have my daughter, Solani, here with us. Feels like a very full circle moment. And yeah, I'm a mother of two. I have a 3-year-old and a 3-month-old. I birthed Solana actually here at home 3 months ago. And I've been practicing integrative medicine for the last 8 years. And I feel just a deep passion and fire within me for all things women's health, through the whole spectrum from menarche all the way to menopause. And yeah, I'm excited to dive deeper into some of those topics today.
Thank you so much for making this time available to us, given how challenging it is to have a mom with 2 kids. So thank you so much for that. And I imagine anyway, that you see people of all gender conformity or non-conformities, but with this question, we'd love you to kind of respond with the lens of the woman. And the question is, what would you dream for all your women identifying clients to have peace in their bodies? What would that dream look like for you?
Feels like a big question.
And it could be based on like what comes to you, people's request for peace in their body, but how do you interpret that?
Yeah, a few things are coming up. I think the first is when patients are approaching me in more of a clinical setting, I really wish for them to be heard and validated and honored, and for their voice and their truth to truly ring free for their body. I think so often I see women who have seen many other practitioners before myself, and unfortunately I hear the same story of, oh, you're a woman, you're supposed to be tired, or, oh, your labs, so many times, oh, your labs look normal, so there's nothing we can do for you. Or just completely dismissing a concern that they have about their body. So I think first and foremost, just rooting in their truth that it is true, and validating that for them. And then, the other thing I think of is supporting women through this whole continuum at each phase with really rooted rituals or honoring of rites of passage. Because I think being in a woman's body, we naturally have these cycles and seasons. We are constantly being initiated just from our own feminine nature through cycles of, the greater lens of menarche, womanhood, motherhood, perimenopause, menopause, or even just our cycle of, follicular, ovulation, luteal, menstruation. You can look at that as really the seasons. You could look at it as a day. You could look at it as the lunar calendar. So we have ingrained initiations and rites of passage that are constantly happening in our bodies. And one curiosity I constantly hold is what happens if we are oriented to that as a collective, as a society, even just as a practitioner.
That would elevate the feminine in all of us, but it would give women the dignity that we have long sought and deserved.
Because I think, too, we try to fit women into the box of patriarchy. The cycle of the day, you know, men's hormones operate on a 24-hour cycle versus women's hormones operate on a 28-day cycle. So we try to fit women into these certain boxes and categories where we just don't fit. We just don't fit. So I think that that's really important to recognize, too.
Thank you so much for saying that so clearly.
Yeah, and one thing that comes to mind as I'm listening to you speak too is in this society, right, this patriarchal society and dominant culture that we're kind of wrapped up in, we're really missing eldership. We're missing the empowered, awakened woman who's gone through all of these rites of passage with integrity and support and carrying that wisdom in their bodies and passing it along to their babies and their villages and their communities. And so something that I think is really beautiful is having worked with you as an integrative practitioner, getting that eldership from you, getting that wisdom from you that I didn't receive and that many women don't receive from dominant culture today. So powerful to be able to integrate that and step into these rites of passage as they are. Initiatory experiences, not with shame or suppression.
Absolutely. Yeah. For me, it really came alive after the birth of my first child, and I stepped into postpartum. You know, I transitioned from maiden to mother. And for so many women, that transition is so difficult. And for me, the recognition was, oh, it's because I'm not being held here. There's no rite of passage that's recognized in our society. In many other societies, yes, but unfortunately in ours, it's completely lost. And without that recognition and like the fully being seen in my transition, it felt horrible. I mean, it felt like I was going through a death and rebirth
without any
support, and no one could see me in that. And it was from there that I really wanted to study how do we honor women's cycles in that way, and how do we bring more of that celebratory ritual to it,
to each phase.
And then and then you zoom out. Like, that was my awakening, was postpartum. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, we're not doing this through any phase of women's. I mean, even thinking about menarche, right, when we get our first blood,
sometimes it's shameful for people.
Totally. And then that's our framework as a woman that we're operating around.
Keep it quiet. Keep it hidden. Don't tell anyone.
Sanitary, like
hygiene.
All of the taboos, like religious taboos. There's so many layers of potential for shame. So
no one wants to talk about it. I have to keep it to myself. I can't share this with anyone else.
Right.
I remember my mom sharing with me that her mom, and even like right through the lineage what the story is. My mom's story was that she never knew about her first blood. So when it happened, she thought she was dying. And then that deep fear of being a woman was ingrained. And then how does that pass on through a lineage perspective too?
Totally. This is a side note, but I just have to say, it's like the spiritual awakening process and being women, which we're naturally intuitive, but how that can really blow you out of your body if nobody ever previewed with you what intuition is, or how to listen to the land, to the ancestors, whatever's coming through your channel. You can empower yourself to really own that. And it's this beautiful, incredible tool to live your life through and to serve others through. And if no one previews that with you or walks you through that initiation, it can completely blow you out of your body and you can feel crazy. And I feel that is such a piece of the spectrum of womanhood.
And like you said, it comes down to the eldership, right? Because how do we hold women on each phase?
And so if we look back to our elders, like my mom was an older mom, and she didn't have the tools to pass along to me. And how do we claim that now so that no other woman is lacking the tools to pass along to her children? But the craziest thing is that my mom bought me some life cycle books, and I had to crawl under my bed to read them. the message was that these are bad books. Where did I pick that up at 10 years of age, right? 10 years of age, I was like, she gave me these books, but I can't read them. Like, you know, and
they can't be seen.
Yeah. So let's not reinvent that. We've got to break that cycle as you are, and as we are doing our best to do today, you know, in this era.
Yeah. So much fear around it. I think so much fear around a woman's power and a woman's wisdom.
Very great point. Like on so many levels, I keep saying the layers and the levels, but it does come from everywhere, politics and from the workplaces, the media, like all these messages, what's covered in the news, what's not covered, how we have to be like we're parts, we're compartmentalized as parts in the medical society today. Like if you have concerns with one part of your body and another, and it's, you know, that it's systemic, you can't actually be treated as a whole body. And that just, I don't know, feels tough.
Separate, not whole, not integrated.
Right. Not integrated wellness or medicine.
Right. Yeah. And even as from a Western perspective, the thing that constantly blows my mind is women weren't even included in medical studies until 1993. 32 years ago, that women were like invited to be studied as men have been.
That women were invited to be studied.
Right. But
we're too complex.
Yeah. And I have another statistic about that. I interviewed someone, I can't remember which episode it was in my first season, who was a scientist and has studied this. And I said, is it really true that the National Institute of Health did not include those studies until 2016? She said yes. Wow. So women were not included in National Institute of Health studies until 2016.
Yeah, so we are just studying women's bodies. We're like this. Yeah, this is all coming to the forefront. But traditionally and ancestrally, you know, it's this. I think we're waking up also to the inherent wisdom within our own body, which is also how I love to guide my patients, is that I trust that your body knows the best. Even, you know, yes, it's helpful to have studies to help guide us, but your body will always be the true guide. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I have a burning question because I'm thinking about people watching this and how this is an opportunity to reclaim power and wisdom. What would you want, you know, women to know as they're going through their initiatory experience of your first bleed or your first menses? How would you talk about that time?
I feel like the biggest thing that I would want to instill a woman with would be how to tend to yourself, like how to cultivate self-love, and like give a practice of, okay, you're on your bleed. That means you are able to fully rest. You don't have to keep going. And so how would it look like for your family or your community to honor that need as well? And I think a lot of women have trouble not doing anything and actually claiming the rest that their body is asking for. But then also practices within that rest, within that withdrawal, within that internal time of your bleed. What would it look like to actually nurture yourself? Does that look like a warm meal, or maybe rubbing warm oil all over your body and all over your womb? Maybe it's a guided meditation and going to bed early. So it's really, I think, supporting women around the framework of like, here's the tools to love yourself in this time. You don't have to hide, you don't have to have shame. But what if we gave girls at that first bleed the tools to support themselves, permission to support themselves, and to like step into self-love instead of the shame?
That would be the foundation for self-love that we're missing.
It can be a special thing from mother to daughter, but it should also be a societal thing, like that we're all holding.
And like the whole red tent concept too, right? The theory that back in the day, I don't have the dates, but you know,
1990s, Anita, I'm forgetting Anita's last name, but the Red Tent, the author of the Red Tent, holding those temples once a month. I've actually attended a number of them, and there's a woman who made a film about the Red Tent Temple movement, and her name's Isadora, but I'm forgetting her last name. What happens? But it's really gorgeous. like you feel so held in this, like a yurt with all the tapestries and the drumming going on and women sitting in circle and just like sharing stories and really slowly and little snacks and things. Really, instead of the banishment to a this cold exterior. You're not okay to be seen in public. You have to be out by yourself. So that was a celebration.
Yeah, to be seen and celebrated in that. And I also really have loved including the men in that too. And with raising my son, before I was pregnant, when I was still cycling, we would make it known that, mama is bleeding and everyone, I'm not going to do house chores. I'm going to rest during these few days. And he got used to bringing me things and watching my husband support that as well, where, mama needs to rest. Can you go help her put her feet up? And he would actively be involved in that.
Oh my gosh.
So I also hold a curiosity, what would it look like if men could also come in and honor women in these cycles?
It's beautiful. And what I was thinking of in terms of the red tent too, I guess, was even further back than that, when the village itself sent women off to their own space or, into the caves, where they could be alone and they could have each other and they could have support. But the mission was to channel the message of God, to channel the message of spirit. So the village actually wanted to take advantage of this time where women are so sensitive and so intuitive and are like, go channel the wisdom and bring it back to us. So reverence,
secret gift.
Reverence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful thinking of how to weave the men into it and your son's role too.
Yeah. I'm thinking of a movie that the 20th Century Women with Annette Bening, Ella Fanning, and Greta Gerwig, I think. There's a scene where they're at a dinner table. It's based in it's like 1979 is the year that it's set. And they're sitting at a dinner table with maybe 13 people, men and women or whatever. And one woman is just she has her head down and another woman says, pick your head up and be social. And she goes, I'm menstruating. and there was this, oh, shush. But she's like, no, I'm menstruating. Let's all say it. You say it, menstruating. And she had all the men at the
That's
table
amazing.
say it. And then they just went into this deeper conversation about sexuality and just these cycles. And I was like, wow, what a great movie. I haven't ever seen it anywhere else, but it was to have that power that young woman, just probably in her late 20s in the film, to just say, no, I'm not going to be quiet. We should all be, respectful and reverent about menstruation. Menstruation.
And I think the other thing of educating women when they first get their bleed is the phases of our cycle. I didn't know about the phases of my menstrual cycle for a decade because I was on the pill. I was on oral contraceptives. Right. So I wasn't moving through those 4 phases. I was never educated on them until I did a deep study in my own body after coming off of them. Because I think that there's also giving permission for being very different in those 4 phases. When you're menstruating, maybe you need to say, here's what I need, here's where I'm at. And maybe when you're ovulating, you actually feel very different in your body and you're able to have more energy and go with the flow and be okay with a big dinner group conversation. So also the permission to, as a woman, look completely different depending on where you are in your cycle and your hormones.
Yeah. I thought it was really valuable to learn about the cycles in terms of the seasons too. That your bleed is your inner winter. So it's your time to cocoon and be still and be in touch with your body. And then your follicular is your inner spring. So you start to kind of come out and feel a little bit more social. And then your ovulation is your summer. So that's when we can be more, external, social, as you said, playful, creative. We have a lot of energy that we've generated, typically with healthy cycles. And then your luteal is your inner fall. So you're getting ready for the pieces and aspects of yourself to die, and preparing for that. And, in my practice, dealing or working with, luteal phase, sometimes like the depression that comes up or the anxiety that comes up, or cyclical thoughts that feel really overwhelming during that phase. And even if it's gentle, if it's not like, okay, this is like a hormone imbalance and I'd probably send them to you. But if it's gentle, reframing it can be really powerful of, this is your inner fall. So this is your body showing you the thoughts, the patterns, the beliefs that are ready to die, that are ready to shed. And if you can just say thank you to your body for showing you what's ready to shed, and then move into your bleed and, peacefully and profoundly let that move through you, how that is such a beautiful ritual of each month you get the opportunity to recalibrate and reset and detox and shed, and just holding it in that framework and not fighting or resisting against some of those thoughts. Like, this is what my body's showing me is ready to die. How beautiful. How supportive to mental health is that?
Absolutely.
How empowering to every other aspect of life to be able to let go every month. How could that translate into the rest of our lives in all spaces?
And even just the awareness of shifting from, oh no, I'm having this symptom. Who do I go to help fix this for me? What is this? Actually dropping back in and asking, what is this showing me first?
Yeah.
And seeing if you can look at that before you outsource that power. There's so much there. And your hormones, I love to tell patients that your hormones are constantly sensing your environment. They are the signals for everything going on within you and around you. And if you have a dramatic shift in your symptoms, what are they saying? What are they trying to communicate with you? Because they are, absolutely. And sometimes it's very clear and very powerful. And sometimes it's a little bit more subtle. But you get an opportunity every month to listen in to what your previous few months have been communicating back to your body.
I'm curious to know if you have some examples of what hormones are speaking really loudly across the board to women, and how could we listen to those and feel that empowerment through that relationship?
Yeah, I would say that the one that I see most commonly is this pattern of estrogen dominance or progesterone deficiency. So progesterone is the dominant hormone of that luteal phase. So after you ovulate, you have your luteal phase and then you bleed. And progesterone is progestation. It's the hormone of life. And so we want that to be really rich in rising in that luteal phase to then support that shed of the endometrial lining. And so if you either have too much estrogen in that time or not enough progesterone, oftentimes you have a lot of symptoms in that luteal phase, whether that's PMS, PMDD,
What's that?
PMDD, premenstrual dysphoria, dysphoric disorder? Yeah. It's more significant mood swings in episodes of depression.
I was thinking depressive disorder, but that's my clinical brain. That's my therapy brain.
And I'm
Is that the new terminology for PMS?
It's a deeper.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're different. PMS is just premenstrual syndrome. So it could be migraines, it could be pelvic discomfort, cramping, breast tenderness, really significant symptoms. And then PMDD is more just the mental health that's worsening. And so all of those can clue us in. I think in today's society too, we normalize a lot of symptoms for women where maybe they are just signs from our hormones that things are out of balance.
Oh my gosh.
You might see your OBGYN and say, I've had really significant pelvic cramping before my bleed. And they will likely tell you to go on the pill to even that out, to even out your hormones. But yeah, in my practice, what I see is there's actually a deficiency of progesterone for some reason. And progesterone, so it not only has to be in balance with estrogen, which is the dominant hormone in the first phase of our cycle, that follicular phase all the way up to ovulation. But other influences on estrogen could be our environment, things like microplastics and endocrine disruptors and mold toxicity. There's countless things that can increase estrogen in our body. And if we're not shedding it appropriately, which happens through our liver and gallbladder and our gut. So if we have deeper imbalances, we can have a buildup of estrogen, and that can look very symptomatic in our cycle. The other thing is if we have a progesterone deficiency, I often find that is correlated with high stress because the body really can only be, the female body can be in two modes. It can either be in that reproductive progestation, making lots of yummy progesterone for us, or it can be in survival, in flight or fight. And that's when we make cortisol, our stress hormone. And we actually can't make those two balanced. So if we're making excess cortisol, our body is going to take resources from progesterone and make cortisol because the need is to survive. And that happens if women are stuck in this 9 to 5,
cycling with
the sun, capitalistic society. So often we're not eating enough food because we're going, we're not sleeping enough. And it builds, and it shows in that lack of progesterone, high cortisol.
Oh my goodness, you explain it so clearly.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, like, how many times have we gone to, have I, just me, myself, gone to doctors and been like, could you, like, I don't want to be spoken to like I'm a 3-year-old, but you're really still not making any sense to me, or you're not taking the time to do you know what you're doing? You clearly know what you're doing, and you're empowering your patients to know what they're doing so that they can, like, go through their day listening and changing the dynamic.
I think it's so important because unless you're taught this by, again, the elders in your community, you often, I found that patients often have to come to this information after many, many, many years of suffering from a symptom on their own, which is why I really value education, so that you know exactly what's going on in your body, and then you can, sit with it and then redirect because you have a full understanding of what is happening and what the hormones are doing and why.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful picture too of the like shift from this external way of being to this internal empowerment and trusting your wisdom and your connection to your body and the information that comes from sacred communication with your body. Like I'm feeling the estrogen dominance in my body, or I'm having a really hard time in my luteal phase. This is my body telling me I need to rest deeper when I'm menstruating.
Or like the question you asked, what are some of those bigger patterns that could show up? Right? If symptoms are really significant, maybe it's not just rest. Maybe it's your body is telling you that your job or your relationship or your something is really, your environment is really out of sync with what your physiology is asking for.
Yeah. Which is
a big pill to swallow.
Right? Especially when society is not built for our inner cycles. Yeah.
And I can totally see like that knowledge giving everybody such boundaries, such clarity. Like, no, I actually am not resourced enough to do that today. I'm actually taking this week off. Or, like there would be so much more support and grace for women in the world, in the workplaces, certainly. And
I would love to see that normalized.
Yes.
Like we have meetings when we're ovulating, and then when we're menstruating, I'm actually not going to answer an email for 3 days because imagine imagine how that would feel for everyone if we could be that in sync.
And I think there's so many women that don't feel that empowerment during their ovulation, or they don't feel like they have that much energy. But to your point, my guess is that's because of an underlying imbalance in some way. And that if we were fully balanced, we'd be able to like actualize each of these phases the way they were intended.
Yeah, I also wonder, I think it's probably difficult for a lot of women too to shift to really listen. I found that once I listened to my cycles, it was like I actually couldn't even do the same exercise every week. I couldn't eat the same foods every week because like you mentioned, you're going through really the whole season in a month. And it might be scary to actually have to like radically shift your life and your needs and claim that every week or even every day.
Yeah, because you can't unhear it.
Exactly.
You can't unsee it. It's like a rubber band. Once it's stretched out, like we can't go back to the original form. And so there is a fear to that. Like, how will I exist in this society if I'm actually deeply listening and intuitive? That's, a big piece. I see so many women in my practice where we're constantly coming up against that fear template, right? Versus moving into a state of surrender and deep listening and trust. It's
connection and, community building with one another, because we're all like reclaiming our own empowerment, our own listening skills to our cycles. Then we're building a village, we're widening the village of support for ourselves to claim that time, that space that we need to love and care for ourselves.
And that's so scary for so many women. Like they are edging on it, right? We're edging and we're stretching for so long because it's like, just let go. And I've been conditioned to hold on. How do I embrace this new template? You just need so much support to be able to get to a place where you can embrace it after all these years of training in the fear template.
The fear template. I really love that language. It just it's a template we can choose to use or not. You know,
and I see that bleed over too, right? Like if that's how we're conditioned and operating to our female physiology, how that bleeds over to birth. Once you then change, right, enter from maiden to mother, how that fear template can completely impact your pregnancy and your birth when you enter the next phase of womanhood.
That is so valuable. Like if you don't have the foundation for this and then you go into an even bigger initiation, theoretically.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% bigger initiation.
Yeah. But there's no baseline skills to know how to hold yourself, know how to communicate with yourself, know how to trust and surrender yourself, or I often talk about multidimensional safety, which connects to a woman's intuition and being able to trust something bigger than yourself, that you're always being held. Yeah. But even being able to trust the wisdom of your body.
Absolutely. And I find that pregnancy, as you might be able to speak to, is a time where so much comes to the surface. Shadows, fears, doubts, concerns, body image, everything comes to the surface to be looked at. And there's a lot there. And so I see oftentimes too, women, when we don't have that framework or the tools to come back to our body and really sort through that, how we can outsource to the medical authority. Yeah. And then we want to give birth in a hospital where maybe that isn't always the safest place for women to be. If pregnancy is normal, and we just constantly kind of outsource to the medical community, which there is a time and place for that. But yeah, I think if we can flip and orient back into our body in pregnancy and birth, the way that we birth, and the way that we hold ourselves in pregnancy, I think that can dramatically shift the nervous system and the outcome of the baby. I really see those two integrated. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was hearing that in your words, and like as soon as we were talking about that shift to that empowerment shift of listening, you're growing another life, and that life is going to be imbued and infused with all of that love and listening. It's so different than just oh yeah, I'm pregnant, like, or I just have this bump. No, there's a massive shift happening in the whole world. There's a whole new life coming, and that needs so much attention, so much care. It's not like continue to work your 9 to 5 or whatever, like nothing's happening. So much is happening.
Yes, you are between the gates of life and death, welcoming a new life, and have the power to change an entire generation.
Oof. Truly, as we talk about fear template, this is where the fear template is born. And a lot of us, this is how we're missing eldership, because the fear is like perpetuated, and the removal
epigenetic.
That's our connection to ourselves. So to really be able to go through, even I would say preconception, like preparing for life, preparing to be a channel in this way, birth, postpartum, requires so much trust at each level. And if you really have a foundation for that, you get to pass along a true sense of safety as you're building a nervous system. So
I think it's so important, that preparation. It's always been interesting to me that we prepare so heavily for other things in our lives, other transitions. Like marriage,
Even
a wedding, buying a house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's so many steps you take to prepare for that big transition. A wedding, you could plan for years on all the little things, all the little details you want in your wedding. And when it comes to actually creating life and completely transforming yourself into mother, oftentimes women jump right in and want to start and trust, and want to start the conception journey, which is, I completely understand. But I also hold a deep curiosity of what would it look like if we slowly walked to that destination and we supported each aspect of ourselves, physically, our minerals, our nutrients, our mind, our spirit. What would that look like to then birth a new generation being fully in your body and in alignment to all the things that are going to produce not only a healthy baby, but produce a healthy mother at the end of that journey, because you are also birthing yourself. You're birthing a baby, but you're birthing a new version of yourself. And if you're under-resourced or you were deficient physically or emotionally or even within your community,
you're not breaking the cycle.
Yeah, that's what shows up. Mm-hmm.
It's so powerful too, because even as we're talking about the seasons of a woman's cycle, and if you really are able to embrace the pattern of letting your luteal be your inner fall and dying, and so that you can really be in that death process during your menstruation, then you have the rebirth in the spring, right? Like, okay, this is the new version of me that's emerging after I just completed the cycle. And I think creating life and birthing life is the same exact way. Like in this pregnancy, I actively feel like I'm working towards my death.
Yeah.
And I can feel that, like, the patriarchal ingrained parts of me too, where I'm like, okay, how much time do I have left before I die? And I'm not the same person. How much time do I have left in this version of myself? But then also being present with the slow dying process that's here. If there's no foundation for that, then we're just like working right up.
That's really scary.
Yeah.
There's so much fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think that also breeds, right? If you're not aware of this death, rebirth, recalibration process, I think that is why a lot of women have this story in our society of gotta bounce back or have to go back to who I was, where you are already holding the awareness that person is never going to come back. There's only forward.
I feel her
There's
leaving.
only new.
I feel her leaving.
Again, is a rite of passage. How do we honor that and welcome in? How do you become surrounded by your community and the women in your life to help usher that new version of you in?
And honor it. Yeah. And it really is like moving from the fear to the trust. Like, okay, it's almost like if you know that you're going to die physically, let's use that as a metaphor, but you really believe in heaven, or you really believe in the afterlife, or you really believe in reincarnation, and you know how beautiful and euphoric and profound that is. That's kind of how I feel in this process. Like, I have trust that after this death process, there's so much more life and it's so much more beautiful, but that I won't be in the same version of myself. So without that, I can't even imagine what trust in life after death, like metaphorically, right, speaking, but also physically, both of those examples, that is terror. That's terror. That's complete terror. So to really be able to trust that, like, yeah, life is even more beautiful and more expansive and more abundant. There's more of everything, more of the contraction and the shadow, and more of the beauty and joy on the other side of this. But you're still able to be present with yourself as you're actively grieving the version of yourself that will cease to exist at the other end of that threshold, which is really a tricky process.
That is deep work.
Deep
work. And yeah, even if you're somewhere in that process, I think the tools that we've already alluded to, like any type of self-love practice where you can come back into your body, that's where I really love, like, especially in pregnancy, taking the time to, like, touch yourself and oil your skin and see how physically things are feeling. Nourishment, I think, could be a really huge tool in pregnancy too. Like, what is your body actually asking for? And instead of giving into even the food fear, don't eat this in pregnancy, you must eat this. I find that if we're able to prioritize deeply nourishing, mineral-rich foods, things like broths and grass-fed meats and if you can tolerate it, whole food dairy and seafood, things that really bring so much nourishment to the body. It helps you ground in and have a foundation from a mineral perspective to then be able to maybe do some of that deeper work. Because I think if you're deficient and your cells are actually kind of starving, it's really hard to then maybe enter into some of the states that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So part of that deep work, I think, is can be really simple too and foundational of like, how are you eating? How are you sleeping? How are you moving? How are you connecting back into your physical body? Are you taking a pause and taking time
I absolutely
to be with it?
love that. I think that's going to be part 2. I would love to start off a whole nother episode, if you have the time, around nourishment, around mineralization of the body, choices. And I'll say just partly because I chose to be a vegan because of the inflammation levels that I have. I love dairy, love it. And my blood type is supposed to be eating a lot of meat, but I haven't been because of inflammation. So I'd love to start a whole nother episode with you about mineralizing the body, choices, and then maybe we can do the other phases of womanhood in that.
Great.
Does that feel
great?
Doable? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
On for the ride.
All right. So we'll call that episode 6. So thank you for listening to Lauren, Rosa, and Fallon and I as we explore life as our younger selves, younger women, choosing life for a next generation in many different ways, as this little beautiful one.
She agrees.
Okay, we'll see you in the next episode.